All right, we are live. It looks like I'm joined here by Josh from Developer Direction, or formerly known as Eat Live Program. Josh, if you could just give a brief introduction on yourself for any of the guys who haven't seen you on my stream before.
Yeah, sure. When was I was on here like 9 months ago? Maybe longer than that, huh?
Yeah, it was earlier this year. I know that. I don't remember exactly when.
I think January or February.
Oh yeah, I see it. Actually, I did pull it up over here. It was February 28th. Wow.
Okay.
Can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, that was right around the time when I actually made partitioned DD out of just my own thing. But yeah.
Yeah, you were still in New Orleans, right, at the time? Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you had like the echoey setup and everything. Now your setup's better than mine.
I don't know about that, but it's much better than what it was for sure. That's for sure. But yeah, I'm Josh, Eat Live Program on YouTube, and basically you and me knew each other from some other adjacent networks. And at the time, I think you were getting set up for something, and you went and talked to me about it, and because you know that I was having those courses, which before were just under Eat Live Program, and I think right around February, so it might have been before or slightly before or slightly after, but I know February is when I was I'm just teaching people how to code and just helping people try to get jobs, et cetera, but I don't even have a thing to call this. And that's when I came up with the DD name, or Developer Direction, but we call it DD. And yeah, I pretty much just started before with me just helping people for free in the beginning, just learning how to code, and people who wanted to get insight on the industry and how to get a job. People who didn't really have I guess you could say, typical storyline where hey, I went to college, just specifically studied computer science, and now I'm a developer. It was people who were either in adjacent fields, or doing something completely different, or even literally just baristas at coffee shops. So yeah.
I definitely resonate with that, with the message there. I mean, obviously, I launched my course recently, and a lot of that was motivated by what I saw you doing, because I think it's very much needed. And do you want to talk about the growth that you've experienced in the past year? Because I know that I joined I even for everyone here, I even joined in on his group and attended a lot of his calls myself. And even from the time when I first joined, which I think that was late February or early March, you've grown so much since then. So do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, it's grown a lot. Yeah, so I guess, and your brother too. Your brother is in there. He's pretty good, by the way, dude. He's really good. I think we talked about that last time you were on my show. But yeah, I think back then in February, so yeah, we had maybe 20 or 30 guys in total, and now we're anywhere in between 85 to 115-ish people in between both the two different group chats that I have. And since then, I think I was supposed to go back and double check this number, but I think about 14 people have gotten jobs so far out of that group. And I was going to say 15, but one of them we'll find out this week. The rest of them are still kind of getting their footing, or either getting ready to apply. But yeah, I've started losing count of over who got a job and who hasn't now. And the quality of the people too, we just have more and more people in there who are people just join who are already working professionally, and just to have access to the network in the group. And yeah, it's it's on its way to being more automated than it is now, but it's kind of a living entity now. So it's it's grown into something that I totally didn't expect, but definitely happy about. And I think more good is to come. That's for sure. But yeah, exponential growth and just 10-month time span.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge need for it. Obviously, in the digital age we live in, yeah, you can find all this information out there for free if you're talking strictly the technical side of it. But I think the reason I join a lot of courses, and you as well, at least for me, I would say it's that, yeah, maybe all that information might be out there, but how valuable is your time? It takes time to go and find all the right pieces that you need. And when you're really new, it's going to be harder for you to know what you don't know. And I think that's the value of joining a course and community like that. And also at the same time, if you're just out there learning the technical skills on your own by yourself, it's going to be a lot more difficult to stay focused and stay on the path than if you have like a bunch of people in a group that have the same goals as you. You're surrounding yourself with them. You have a mentor that's guiding you. So I think there's a real need for that because there's so many, courses on Udemy where you can learn stuff, or just free resources and things like that. But I think that's what really sets groups like this apart and brings value, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. Because I'll say this: the first guy ever, from even before I was even like eLift program, Fido, you know him. Yeah. He had spent like 6 months just like doing like Udemy courses and stuff online before he like linked up with me. And like he had never, and it's not just him, it's like most people, he never knew how to go from just like zero, like, hey, I have a text editor open that's blank, to like, okay, I have a finished like product and code. Like, because most of the stuff in Udemy and all those courses, although they're really good tools, I still take them myself occasionally. I actually took one like 2 months ago, just casually for fun. But they always mostly start off with the precedence that like whoever is like starting or watching it doesn't know absolutely nothing, like from ground zero. They kind of like make an assumption that they know maybe like a little bit, and they kind of go over a little like they kind of go over they pass over small details that would be important for a lot of people, or at least, and I know they were important for me when I was learning this stuff. And then also, like, you're just really, it's like reading a textbook about something as opposed to going out and actually applying the things that you're reading. Because you can read all day long, but until you actually go out and do something, you couldn't really consider yourself like a master on it, right? So I think having people in there who are, in that same field and have been there and done that before, or even having people on the same level as you who might just have like different skill sets, and being able to talk to them helps a lot. I think that's the most important thing too, honestly. Like, I think that is more of a benefit than just like courses alone, in my opinion.
Yeah, the networking aspect's huge. I mean, that's how Josh and I met. That's how pretty much all the people that you probably interact with the most right now were people we all met through the courses we've taken. So yeah, that's definitely an underrated benefit for sure. Moving forward to the blockchain and Web3 opportunities, can you give a brief explanation of what Web3 is for some of the people that might not be familiar?
Yeah, so basically, to say it as like easy as possible, Web3 is like the decentralization of the internet. But more so, the most important part is that decentralization is primarily driven towards the users of the internet being able to actually own a piece in the internet, as opposed to like, Google, Amazon, Facebook owning like 99% of the internet. And it's quote unquote censorship resistant, and primarily based off of blockchain technology. So it's kind of like, if you think about when we had the iPhone come out, I think that was like what, 2006, 2005, 2007, something like that. Yeah. That changed a lot, right? Because there was no more, after that, everything just became an app. Even like most people's camera, like they don't even have cameras anymore. They just, use the camera app on their phone. And that brought a lot of like industry into software to begin with. And then I'm not, wouldn't be surprised because it's already happening essentially. But in fact, I would say I'm 100% certain that now all those softwares, all those companies that went into apps are going to be moving those apps into Web3. So it's kind of like the next stage in the internet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you just take a step back for a second to think of like in the current day how hard it is to not be reliant to some degree on one of the big tech companies, it's like if you think about a person that doesn't use one of those, it's kind of like the equivalent of the guy that's like in the cabin out in the woods. Like it's really hard to do, right? I mean, you probably use like Amazon Prime and stuff like that, right? You probably have an Instagram account that's owned by Facebook. You probably use Google Drive to store your data. You probably have an iPhone, right? So yeah, it's crazy. I think there's a big need for that, definitely, especially when you see how quickly people can get deplatformed and silenced for alternating viewpoints and things like that. So yeah, with that being said, what opportunities do you think that really brings to the tech space with this growing, Web3 and blockchain?
More than one could count, honestly. So we were just talking about how like it's kind of impossible to exist nowadays unless you're in a log cabin in the woods without being dependent on like one of those companies, or we just call that Web 2 for now. Without being dependent on Web 2, people want it. People want Web 3. There's already way too much money. There's way too many people. There's way too many actual companies and entities and even countries now vested in keeping this not just alive, but to continue to flourish and evolve and grow. And in the future, in the same way that it's going to be impossible to escape Web 2, same thing for Web 3. So like I would say in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of different like protocols and applications are going to have most of their stuff in Web3, because if not, people are just going to choose to just not use them anymore, right? That's why we're seeing like stuff like Facebook change their name to Meta. Like, oh, we're all about the metaverse now. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, Facebook changed their name, dude. Like,
yeah.
So they see it, they know.
Yeah.
All those.
Because a lot of people hate Facebook, even out of like the normie crowd. Even the people that are like really, pro centralization and stuff, or don't really think much about decentralization. Even a lot of those people hate Facebook. So
yeah, right. I hate Facebook too, so I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Harry Maguire Jr. says, so you don't pay any more internet bills. So it's not that like your internet service provider itself is going to be quote unquote decentralized, which that definitely could be a possibility. I don't know what that would look like, but so for example, like we're using StreamYard, right? And we're using StreamYard through YouTube. So like YouTube is a big company. I don't know what company StreamYard is, but I'm sure that their parent company is probably one of like 15 or 20 massive companies or massive tech companies. And like a small group of these tech companies own a majority of the servers, the platforms, et cetera, and the data as well. Like we're just talking about Google Drive, that all this software runs off of, right? When things are on Web3, that software is owned by it's owned by the people who have the digital asset that is used as a reward incentive for running the network. So they have these things called nodes and miners. So let's just talk about Ethereum, since that's a network that actually has applications on it, or dApps, decentralized applications. They have currently they're using a proof of work protocol. They're moving towards proof of stake. But what that means is anyone out there in the world, you can just download the software to run the Ethereum node on a computer. Like you can run it off a Raspberry Pi, actually. Like I think you need just like a minimum of like 2 gigabytes of RAM. That's it to run a node. And anybody who's running these nodes, they're like sharing the software as it circulates throughout computer. So they, as a reward, so that's not the reward. Sorry, hold on, let me back up a second. So they take the transactions of different things that are going on the blockchain. We'll just call them transactions, but everything that is done, anytime like a function is called or anytime code is executed, you need Ethereum. It's like the Ethereum itself, the digital asset, and you pay what we call just gas, right? So like you don't pay like a whole Ethereum, but just like little snippets of it. And those end up being transactions that kind of give like a history of everything that's going on throughout the net. And those transactions get compounded together. And they have these things called miners who take those and then concatenate them to blocks on this kind of chain. So if you think about like a block, like a linked list, kind of sort of, but a little bit different, a little bit more complex than a linked list. And the miners, they get Ethereum as a reward for validating and securing the network. And then people can go and sell that Ethereum. And then you can use that Ethereum to essentially like participate in the network, own the network. And that's just the underlying network itself. And then they have protocols on top of the network. And this is not just Ethereum. Like there's plenty of different networks now. There's like too many to even count. But then they have like protocols. So like, I don't know, Uniswap, because that's like the most commonly known one, right? They have their own token. And just by having that token, a token doesn't really have a use case, right? But you have to pay for it. Or you got it for free in an airdrop just by like using their application. So those you get to use as a governance token. And so the owners of it, anytime some kind of proposal is or a change is proposed, if you have the token, you can vote. Hey, we want to allow this, or no, we don't want to allow this. As opposed to like Comcast or Amazon or Apple or Google, whatever, just saying, hey, no, we own the company. We're going to do whatever we want. So that's where the ownership comes from. When I say by like the internet, you still have to pay, at least now, but you still have to pay for your internet service provider who's allowing like the fibers in your house to connect to you. But I mean, that's like a whole industry that in itself that's most likely going to be updated and changed too.
Yeah. And along those lines, I would say, speaking of industries changing, right? I mean, this technology already has made a lot of people question the assumptions they just made before, like, you know, especially when it comes to how they're treated by their banks, for example, of all the fees they take and things like that. And they're like, wait, it doesn't have to be like that. And, you know, other industries as well. So yeah, there's a lot to learn with this stuff in the beginning. If you were listening so far and you're pretty lost, don't worry. There's a lot of lingo. There's a lot of things to understand, kind of like cybersecurity. So yeah, don't be too discouraged. This stuff, you're still early. That is the crazy part, right? I mean, I think so many people think that, just because they didn't buy when Bitcoin was like under $1, that they missed the party or something like that. But what people don't understand is there's a whole entire ecosystem of cryptocurrency now. And it's not just like Bitcoin. It's not just Ethereum. Like Josh was saying, there's more chains out there than you can really count anymore. And there's so many coins coming out all the time. They have different use cases, different technologies. So the way that I like to explain it is, if you think of the internet, we have all these different protocols, right? We have like the HTTP protocol for, you interact normally with your web browser, websites and things like that. You have the FTP protocol for transferring files. You have all kinds of different protocols, but they make up the internet. That's kind of how I see a lot of these different cryptocurrencies. They're not all competing against each other per se. Some of them can be complementary. And the more you start to learn about this technology, I mean, obviously, as you guys know that watch this channel, whenever you have functionality, you have the potential for vulnerabilities and things like that. And you're going to need to have an understanding of the technology in order to secure these things. So along those lines, Josh, what benefit do you see for cybersecurity people to learn about blockchain and this technology?
Real quick, we were just talking about there's all kinds of different ways. As of right now, there's 15,447 different cryptocurrencies, and that's just the ones that are recognized by CoinMarketCap. There's like quite a bit more, because I mean, like I can just go make one in like 15 minutes, right? So yeah, you're definitely correct about that.
I mean, and we did that on your course too. We made one in like a day or two.
Yep, exactly. But as far as security goes, like the whole premises of the blockchain is about security. So like it's actually cybersecurity on steroids by nature of just existence. And since, because of how blockchains work, or at least these decentralized blockchains running decentralized computing networks. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to confuse people out there, but because I know some of the stuff that I said before was confusing. So let's just talk about, I'll just say things like Ethereum, because how they work, they require, they require people to be incentivized to do the correct things with money, right? However, there's still bad actors out there, right? There's always going to be people who just want to just steal money from people and exploit people, right? And we've seen there's been more hacks that people can even count. And there's one that pops up here and there, and people lose some of these protocols are playing around with billions of dollars of people's money. So they pay very good to have companies come in and audit their smart contracts. And even just to have their their front end web applications be as secure as possible, because when you're dealing with millions and billions of dollars of people's money, you best believe that people are going to pay good to make sure that everything's secure. So I think probably the biggest opportunity would be security in and relevance to smart contract programming languages like Solidity, Rust, et cetera, et cetera. That's probably going to be the most opportune, I would say. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're on the topic, this is a point that I made actually in one of the webinars for my course last night. If you think about just the operating systems people use right now, Windows has the vast majority of the market share. And if you're on Windows, you probably use antivirus. Probably you use just the built-in Windows Defender, because nowadays that's probably one of the best on the market for Windows. Actually, they really improved theirs a lot. But if you're using Mac OS or you're using Linux, chances are you're probably not using an antivirus. And why is that? The reason that is because Windows has such a huge percentage of the market share that most of the attackers, they're not going to really bother with writing malware and stuff for Linux or Mac. They're going to target Windows because that's what everyone's using. I think as blockchain technology, whether it's Solidity, smart contracts, that's the biggest thing right now as far as, code in the space. As that stuff gets bigger, that's where the attackers are going to be targeting. So that's where most of the automated hacks that people create are going to be. That's where most of the information is going to be on people that, for people that don't really know how to hack and they're just out there trying to exploit stuff. That's where a lot of the most advanced attackers are going to spend their time. So I think especially as this stuff grows, gets more adoption, gets a bigger user base, that's only going to increase greatly. And, I did look at a lot of these Solidity smart contract vulnerabilities on my YouTube channel. If any of you guys are interested, check out my playlist, Cryptocurrency and Security. I've done a lot of them in there. And one thing you'll notice is that all of the vulnerabilities in that, it requires knowledge of code. It requires knowledge of Solidity in particular. So that's the value of, I would say, the importance of learning this as a cybersecurity professional if you want to be a part of that, of security in that space, because the way it works is a lot of it comes down to source code auditing. So you got to be able to look at a Solidity smart contract and identify where some potential vulnerabilities are. And the way you actually exploit that smart contract is you have to write your own contract that interacts with that and exploits it. So you're not going to be able to do that if you have no coding knowledge. So definitely, if this is an area you're interested in, learning how to code is essential.
Yeah, and another thing too, on the Solidity security part, it can be incredibly nuanced. So, and it's not the easiest thing to do, but you're in cybersecurity, so sometimes some of that stuff can be hard. Barring, the more you do it, the better you get. But since it is so hard, or at least let's not say hard, nuanced and actually new too, right? Because all this stuff is still relatively new. Not relatively, actually. It's very new, right? Like Solidity doesn't even have good documentation at all. Their documentation's awful. That's why it pays so good. And I think the people that move first, like now, and can start getting in now, they're going to be the people that we're looking at already now, and like, you know, previous industries who are like, yeah, that guy's like the wizard. People just pay the money to just consult them about how they should write their code so that it's secure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And along the lines of, you know, writing code and learning blockchain fundamentals, I believe you do have a course coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah, we do blockchain fundamentals. And let's see. Yes, the enrollment is ending December 12th, so Sunday. But yeah, you guys can go to developerdirection.com, and there's like a courses tab. You can check that out right there. Basically, in that course, like, we actually will start the course with the premises that nobody knows anything about code, whereas like most people don't, and it's going to be a little bit like less intense in the front to be more friendly to people who just haven't even done anything, right? And just are interested in this kind of stuff. We go through a lot of stuff, and we are going to be inevitably creating or teaching everybody how to create an ERC20 token, and a couple other different kind of like smart contract stuff. Also, just like explaining how blockchain tech works from a fundamental basis, right? Because that's the most important. Like, if you don't know how like this stuff works on the base layer, like, you know, you can study this stuff up here, but it's going to be a lot harder to like conceptualize inside your head. And I mean, we do everything. We're going to be talking about how to get jobs in there, because we have people in the group who have come and take the course before and got jobs in the blockchain industry. And just like strategy revolving around that, how you could like tailor your resume. We have, I don't really know if I'm supposed to be saying this, but let's just say in a video game, of course, not in real life, in a video game, our characters in a video game have a database of recorded interviews from actual, you know, interviews in the video game, right? Not in real life, of actual companies in a video game, where people can see and like experience like what that's like without even having to go through it themselves. People come and actually take interviews, and we'll critique them as well and help them. So yeah, I mean, there's just like more than I can even talk about. I tried to not, when we were doing this new page, I tried not to fill up the bullet points without like taking people off the rails. But you can ask anybody who's been there or taken that one. Like, it's a pretty solid one if you just want to get your feet wet and get the most bang for your buck. If you're like, either you're just starting, you don't know how to code at all, or if you're just starting, you know a little bit and you just want to learn about blockchain, or even if you know a little bit about the blockchain already. So that is going to be ending. The enrollment's going to be ending December 12th, which again is Sunday. So if anybody's interested, they can go to the site and check that out.
Yeah, so I'll ask this question because I know there's probably going to be a ton of people wondering this. How possible is it for someone that they're not like a college age, they're older, maybe they're in their 30s, 40s, and they want to make a career change and get a job in blockchain? How feasible is that through taking your course, and what's the time frame for most people, for the average person trying to do that, would you say?
Yeah, because like it's probably one of the most asked questions I get, and it's not just with the blockchain too. It's just like with just a job as a developer, period. That is really dependent on the person, right? It's really dependent on the person, and we've seen it done in a couple months. I've also seen people drag their butt, and a lot of that's going to depend on how much free time you have, to be honest with you, because none of this stuff, although it is science and it's blockchain science, it's not rocket science. So it's doable, but you're going to have to spend time, right? You're going to have to spend time, even time probably outside the course, studying and writing code, which everyone should do anyway. But let's just say worst case scenario, let's say like you're 45, and you were a janitor your whole life. You never did anything with a computer at all, which I highly doubt that like that's going to be the case for a majority of my clientele. but let's say that's the case. But you happen to be, relatively intelligent. You might not be the smartest guy in the whole world, but you're definitely not the dumbest. You're very hardworking, and you have decent bit of free time. Maybe 8 hours a day. That's a lot of free time, right? I would say minimum for that person, since they were a janitor on the resume, we would teach them how to go about like the application process and kind of like tailoring their resume to make it look like they're the most techie janitor possible. But minimum 6 months, and then maximum would be, I'd say, a year and a half. So like 16 months, right? And that's if they're trying, right? I mean, if they're not trying, it could never happen. But if they're trying extra hard, it's also can happen in less than 6 months too. But I'd say general with the worst case scenario, yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people focus too much on like the smarts part of the equation. They're like, am I smart enough or not smart enough?
Yeah.
I mean, when I was first learning the cybersecurity stuff, I didn't feel smart when I was struggling. When I was just struggling and not really getting anywhere, I didn't feel smart then. Even sometimes now, it's like you have to do things that are like require a lot of research, banging your head against the wall. And it's not always easy. That doesn't mean that you're not smart enough or not cut out for it. I think the bigger part of the equation is just, are you willing to put in the work and be consistent on it? I would say, yeah, same thing. Like, people are like trying to compare themselves to like the best of the best, like when they just started as well. You should be comparing yourself to yourself. This is something I talk about in my own private group today, but it's really easy to look at someone else that might be farther along than you or whatever the case may be. And you just think like, oh, I can never be where this guy is. But you don't want to compare yourself to someone else. You want to compare yourself to where you were yesterday, right? And, every day when you put in the work, you should just go to bed knowing a little bit more than you did before. And if you do that and you just rinse and repeat, it's only a matter of time before you look back and you're like, wow, I learned, so much. And then before you know it, you will be ready for your first job or wherever you're trying to go.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had older people pull it off. So not an impossibility. But yeah, I think I was in one of your webinars. I popped in when people were, like, had that conversation about like, I don't know if I'm smart enough. And you've seen people ask me that before too, right? So yeah. And what people don't understand is that, especially with development too, like we've evolved so much that we're not like using C++, and some of the audience might not understand what I'm about to say, but we're not like coding C++ and like reallocating and deallocating memory with like pointers and stuff. Like you can actually just like do a couple keystrokes on your keyboard, and then like 10 lines of code are coded for you, right? So that's a big bonus too. And then, I'd say a lot of it is very like systemic. And if you can read a guide online, or have someone teach you in person how to change the oil in a car or how to change a tire in a car, you can do this stuff too, right? It just might take longer to write a smart contract than it would to change the oil in the car. Although actually, might actually be the opposite. But it's the same thing. Like if you can do that kind of stuff, you can do this too. It's not really so much about how smart you are, but more like how willing you are to just like take time to learn. Yeah.
Because as you learn this stuff, you start believing in yourself. Then, when you see the progress that you made, and you see like all the things you couldn't do before, and now you can, like, you start to believe in yourself, and you start to view yourself differently as well. So yeah, definitely worth it to embark on anything that's difficult. That's what makes it so rewarding in the end, when you do learn how to do whatever you're trying to do. With that being said, though, Josh, how would you recommend to get the most growth in the tech industry in general?
I would say having a support group as opposed to just trying to do something on your own. Because I know from personal experience, like, and I'm not even the tech industry, like anything that you try to do in life, having a support group and an actual network and mentors in that network is is literally critical to. That's like the one simple trick. You know, like all those like YouTube thumbnails. One simple trick. That really is like the one simple trick to, you know, getting better at something, is having to ask people who've been there and done that. Dude, society is just kind of like so strange now. People don't like, especially guys, like don't like come together anymore. Everyone's just like so on their own, which is part of the future, right? It's part of the future is being able to have a more a life where you don't really have to interact with society as much, right? Because I mean, I could just like, if I'm hungry, I can just like take out my phone and just order Uber Eats and have it just delivered, right? I don't have to like go to a restaurant and talk to people. I don't have to, you know, go to a grocery store and talk to people. Same thing with like education too. Like you can be in college and just attend, watch recordings of your courses and read stuff. But even in like a college scenario, even in like, you know, even people who are in jobs professionally, like they're on a team, but they don't actually like have people who they might actually have to consider as a mentor, and a network too, right? And even outside of a job in a school, like just having that with people who have been there, done that, more people on the same level as you that you can just talk and relate to, that is important. Because like, instead of having one brain, you got multiple.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it's a lot easier. Yeah, like you're saying, even like sticking to it. You know, a lot of people, I think, you know, and yeah, sadly, there are some people that do join and they still don't you know, keep up with it and be consistent. Maybe they show up a bunch towards the beginning, and then, you know, they skip a few, and then they feel like they're too far behind, and then they just stop altogether. But yeah, that's why when you get in these groups too, I would say, is take advantage of the network, right? Don't just be like a shadow viewer and someone who, you know, just does the assignments. You know, engage in the community aspect of it as well. Network with the other people that are in there. That's how, you know, like I said, that's how Josh and I met, and, you know, a lot of other great guys as well. But when you have friends that are also, you know, going on the same journey as you, it makes it a lot easier to stick to it, and it's very motivating. I started actually doing that myself with some of the security stuff that I've been doing, different challenges and stuff. One of my brother's friends actually was getting into it as well, and we just started. I was like, "Hey man, do you want to work on this challenge or whatever?" And we made it a regular thing to work on the hacking challenges, and I ended up improving a lot because of that. I actually got a new job off of that pretty much, because when I had to do that technical challenge, it was really difficult. I've been practicing a lot before that, so that helped a ton. But just things like that can help you so much, because you are we're all very malleable creatures as humans, right? Yep. And who we surround ourselves with, whether you're aware of it or not, is going to affect like how you think and how you behave, at least to some degree. So with that being said, you want to surround yourself with people that are, you know, ambitious and going for the same things as you.
Positive peer pressure as opposed to negative peer pressure, right?
Yeah, everyone always talks about the negative peer pressure, but yeah, positive as well. That's equally as strong an influence. So yeah, awesome. Any closing remarks you had?
I see my spotty sweated headband is in the chat. I spotted sweaty headband. No, man. Yeah, guys. If you're interested in just like hearing stuff about blockchain code, that general type of, well, I mean, I talk about more than just that. I don't even know. I wouldn't even know what to classify 100% what I talk about. But you can head over to my YouTube channel. That's Eat Lith Program. And if you're interested in the courses of the network, you can check out developerdirection.com. And
yeah, everyone click off of the stream and go subscribe to him right now. But yeah, thanks for joining, having the stream, Josh. Always good to have you on. But yeah, everyone, thanks for attending, and I'll see you guys later.